Hello, here is Michael Pulin. I present today a lecture named Functional and Informational Microservices. There is a time in a year when a person slows down his or her race for the future and thinks, is this the right direction where I'm going? Assume this is the time. We see that everything around us becomes as a service. What is a service? It seems that something or somebody does something for me. This is the service. Then why my colleagues say that everything around us is data-centric? People say that nothing comes from nowhere. Services in technology root in CORBA, where consumers and providers of the service exchange functional commands and data. The applications executed commands using its own or received data. CORBA. The web services interfaces came later and moved on the more popular HTTP protocol, but still supported functional commands and data. The difficulty here was in the complexity of the marshalling mechanism, though later on we could create a web service by only one click on the widely available tools. The real problem was in functionality, which IT could not manage without business. A pure IT realm was about data and data-centric operations. This became an IT religion, and even when IT was requested to automate business activity or function, it was called data-centric, on the ground that functions processes data, which is not right. This is how REST came up and conquest software development. It becomes politically incorrect, if you want, to mention that data itself had and has no value without business interpretation, while business functions can work with any arbitrary data. So it became apparent that data-centric approach alone was inefficient in solving functional-centric business tasks, and large, functionally rich applications behind the RESTful interface did not seem right because data operations were not of the priority for business. The monolith applications were split into this collections of small applications named microservices. And it was declared, particularly by Martin Fowler, that each microservice owns its database. Finally, the way to data was open, theoretically. At a glance, microservices were introduced as a technology set around simple business functions. It was great. In allegorical interpretation, technology became armed with waterproof, heat-saving bricks of special shape convenient for holding in the mason's hand, means in developer's hand. But nobody said how to build a house or application with such bricks. On the contrary, the focus was on the handling convenience for small team to build it, and definitely using undoubtful RESTful interface. As a result, the industry have got an oxymoron. Indeed, microservice is defined as a realization of the business function while it is used for accessing data. Why? This is the reason, in my opinion. Only RESTful interface is involved because it has mistakenly embedded in the definition of microservices, while technical interface is nothing more than a communication means unrelated to the business function. We have got in the situation where a cart pushes the horse. An interface dictates what the microservice should do. That is, technology is put upside down. Following this logic, we can preserve the key values of microservices. That is, what they do, what values they are supposed to generate. From the consumer perspective, mechanisms for accessing microservices results or how to access microservices are secondary factors that depend on the preferences of the consumer base, not the developer. And this is definitely the situation we have in the market. Standing on the shoulders of existing explanations about the nature of microservices, we have composed a short summary about what microservice is. I'd like to outline that new gRPC interface, initially created by Google and now an open source, perfectly fits with the functional-centric microservices. I call them functional microservices. Also, we have outlined the RESTful interface aspects. This interface is not a characteristic of a microservice whatsoever, and this is confirmed by microservices interacting via events, which has nothing about REST. Nonetheless, for the sake of backward compatibility, I still call this data-centric model Informational Microservice. In the left-hand side of the screen, we see a column where I enumerated the most important characteristics of functional or function-centric microservices. Due to gRPC interface, functional microservices can now provide detailed model of business functional invocation and cooperation, business flexibility and adaptability, supports distortionless microservices suitable for business, can operate with functions and data. They support scalability, security, manageability, and extendability through the set of available tools. And performances of gRPC may be better than for REST. The informational microservices depicted in the right-hand side column may be, in essence, any applications, even unrelated to microservices technology, because they are about data and data exchange, which is irrelevant to data processing. For example, a consumer can ask a weather forecast service about the weather for tomorrow, and this service uses RESTful interface. Behind the interface, there may be any system with multiple functions, distributed suppliers, mathematical modeling, and data processing. There may be no microservices at all because the consumer request has asked for data, not an execution of a function. In other words, there is no need for function-centric microservice in this case, and the weather data can be simply fetched from a database. Functional and informational microservices can work together. This enables a much clearer and more meaningful picture. The image in the center of the bottom of the screen illustrates this. The consumer requests the execution of particular business function and its results. Since gRPC interface can exchange commands on the execution of business functions and can support data streams, the consumer one operates via a single request using a command pattern and receive streamed responses. For the sake of demonstration of capabilities, the consumer 2 utilizes streamed requests and receives streamed responses. The applications with RESTful interfaces here are used for data access as usual. I think it's become clear that informational microservices play a supplemental role for functional microservices, as it takes place in real life where technology is agile to business. This is all about this lecture, and in the end, I'd like to promote recently formulated code of DevOps practice. Send your comments and proposals to refine it and make it an industry code. The link to this code is available in the screen. Thank you very much. That is all for today, and have a good day. Bye-bye.